Hey YouTube, what's going on? Corey here, coming back at you in the video. In today's video, we're going to talk about 4K. A little bit of history about 4K if you're not too familiar with it. Essentially been around for well over 10 years. But Jim Gennard, founder of Oakley, came out with the Red camera. Essentially, 4K came about where they wanted to push the boundaries of what was 35 millimeter film at that point in time. In the early 2000s, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and quite a few other people wanted to find a way how to archive, I would say better archive, film negatives, 35 millimeter, into the new digital age. And so essentially, it first came out with 2K, right after Red was announced the 4K. You may be wondering, where did 2K go? I think 2K is still really relevant. I think 2K, it's in a way, it didn't take off for some reason. I think actually I prefer 2K over 4K, especially when it comes to the files and everything else. And it kind of brings us to this point in time where everyone wants 4K. Well, 4K has been around for well over 10 years. It's now to the point to where your average consumer can get their hands on 4K product. But here is the trick. A lot of people, TV manufacturers, are pushing 4K, but there's not enough content in 4K. So like I said to a couple of my friends just a couple weeks ago, if you look back well over 5 years ago, everyone was still in standard definition, maybe some 720. Not every single average consumer has made the switch over to full HD, which would be 720 or 1080, for like 5 years. And again, just maybe 2 years ago at this point now, everyone finally got an HD TV, and broadcast news outlets finally started giving 720p, 1080p signal flow in their broadcast. I remember stringing for a couple of local news stations, and we were still shooting standard definition. It would be broadcast up to HD. And again, it took just a couple of years for them to finally start shooting HD out in the field, because obviously they have a much higher workflow when it comes to those files. So really, what is my take on the whole 4K push right now? I agree, but then again, I don't agree with it in a way, because again, if you look back, which well over 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it took the average consumer 5 years to really catch up and really get an HD TV. Now you want to push 4K, and again, I think it's going to take another few years for it to catch up with your average consumer. Plus, there's not a lot of content in 4K. Plus, on the flip side of that, the human eye cannot really tell the difference, unless you're at a big screen, the difference between 2K resolution and 4K resolution. The human eye better details 2K resolution than 4K. Don't know why that is, but for some reason the human eye can distinguish 2K better than 4K. But if you try to tell someone the difference, you won't really notice until you have a real big screen and you start to really see the few minor details here and there. Maybe see a little bit of sharpness in a way, but that's really it. I see the benefit of 2K and or 4K. I see a benefit in sports. That's a big thing. I think in 4K is great for sports. I remember 3D was trying to make a comeback, and a lot of people said 3D would be good for sports. Never really took off. A lot of movie theaters either show their films in either 2K or 4K. I think majority of them are in 2K because projectors, they don't really switch them out a whole lot. In movie theaters, a lot of them are just still trying to upgrade their system to go ahead and handle film and also digital film, I'll call it, at this point in time. So that's pretty much it. The quick video for you guys as far as my thoughts as far as 4K goes. I mean, it's great. It's future-proof. Don't get me wrong. It's great for archiving, stuff like that. But the question is, at the end of the day, is I think the average consumer is not ready for it just yet, because partly there's not a lot of content out there yet for it. And also, when it comes to your production, you have to really consider the workflow behind it. You're going to be dealing with a lot of bigger files. I used to shoot on the Blackmagic Cinema camera, and I had uncompressed 2.5K RAW, I actually would shoot in 422 HQ 10-bit Apple ProRes, and I was able to get the longitude, latitude, and the highlights, and I mean, I was able to just bring back a whole lot of highlight and shadow details just in the 10-bit 422 ProRes file, which all people say, is that possible? Yeah, it is possible, especially with the cinema camera, the way they have the CMOS imager built in, and the way CMOS handles red, greens, and blues, if you know anything about that. Yes, I mean, I prefer 10-bit over 8-bit. A lot of people will kind of disagree, but when it comes to green screen, when it comes to gaining your highlights, shadow detail, all those small little things, 10-bit works. And again, if your project can't afford 4K, shooting 1080 ProRes HQ, you're gonna get the highest quality, no matter what. It's 1080. Yeah, it's accepted everywhere. You don't have to really necessarily shoot 4K just because you want to shoot 4K, especially if your budget can't handle that. Especially especially on the back end, the post production side. You know, a lot of people say, "Well, I shoot 4K and I can crop in," but it takes you just amount of time to crop in on an image than it is for you to change the lens on the camera to get a close-up shot. Now, it's not to say that if you're a documentary shooter and you're kind of in a pinch and in the post-process you like a more of a close-up shot versus the medium shot you did, that's fine. It's just it's you know, that's not a problem there. But to use 4K as an excuse to just crop and post is kind of being lazy, in my opinion, on the production side of things, from that standpoint. So that is it. That's my rant, rave, whatever you want to call it, 4K. There's a lot of information out there on that. I also did a blog on 4K a couple years ago. If you check out my website, just type in 4K, you should be able to find it. And I'll probably try to put a link below as well for you guys. So this is it for this video, and we'll see y'all later.